Going to be facilitating our conversation this afternoon about House versus Hurricane, and basically a bit of a case study of their second album, Crooked Teeth, which was released in July of this year and entered the ARIA charts at number 9. We'll discuss what was involved, the strategy behind taking the band to that kind of next level without losing your core fans, and also how House managed to do it after going through some pretty significant changes. I'd like to introduce to you the people on the panel today. Starting to my right, we have Edwin from New World Artists. Edwin's the band's agent. He's worked with many of Australia's biggest bands, The Living End, Dead Letter Circus, Children Collide, the list goes on. In the middle there, we do have Ryan McLerie from House versus Hurricane, the band's guitarist, one of the vocalists and a founding member of House versus Hurricane. Next to him, we have Reato. Beck's one half of the Deathproof PR team, a pretty new PR company who've been around for 18 months or so, Beck. Working with local and international acts, the Smith Street Band, Pennywise, Gaslight Anthem, Dream on Dreamer, and a whole bunch more. Been a very, very busy 18 months for those guys. And at the other end, we do have Luke Logemann. Luke is House's manager, and he also runs the label side of Unified. Luke's managed and put records out from The Amity Affliction, Getaway Plan, Dream on Dreamer, North Lane, The Bride, and it's a pretty impressive roster that he's been able to build up over the years. So that's who's going to be doing the talking today. I'll bring you up to speed, I suppose, with a bit of a brief history of House versus Hurricane. The band started about 6 years ago in the eastern Melbourne suburbs of Bayswater. Gigged around for a while, won a bit of a battle of the bands and released their debut EP, Forfeiture, in 2008. Those familiar with the band know the sound is pretty much a post-hardcore kind of melding of alt-rock and keyboards. That was the early sound. That kind of saw them generate a pretty significant amount of buzz throughout the scene. The hype grew to the point where they were starting to get some bigger shows. I suppose one of their biggest breaks initially was picking up a national support for the Devil Wears Prada, who were kind of the big band in that sound at the time. In 2009, they headed to the US, headed to Baltimore to work at the Salad Day Studios on their debut album with Brian McTernan, famed producer who's worked with some of the biggest punk and hardcore names, people like Hot Water Music, Thrice, Botch, and many, many more. That album, the debut one, Perspectives, was released in early 2010. It debuted at 69 on the ARIA charts, and the reaction to the album was pretty good, but I suppose a little bit mixed from fans and critics. The band continued to work really hard, gigging, touring internationally, and building on that fan base. House then started to make some changes which would really kind of shape the next step for the band. Their keyboardist, Joey, was asked to leave the band, and the keyboard... Is that's official, Riz? He was asked to leave? Yeah, okay. Yeah, got the boot. So the keyboard parts of the band which was a contributing factor to the sound, were not replaced. They then signed with Unified, the label, and got a new manager in Luke Logemann. And then the original vocalist, Chris Dicker, decided his time with House was up, and he was replaced by Dan Casey, who was obviously always been a close friend of the band and a gig with them over the years in his former band Nazarite Val. So that kind of brings House versus Hurricane up to where they were. I suppose a good kind of starting off point would be for you, Riz, basically to ask, when you were going through all those changes, those key changes within the band, what was the mindset like for you guys as you were making such big steps?
I guess when we asked Joey to leave, that was quite a big thing, because he's obviously a big personality within the band, performance-wise and off stage. But it was just got to a point where we couldn't do it anymore with him, so we decided we should make that change. And yeah, following that was a really good time. We wrote a lot and stuff, and then Chris obviously deciding that he didn't want to be in the band anymore, just wanted to focus on working and doing normal stuff for a while and not having no money. that was a really kind of big blow, and we were the other guys were still keen to do it. Personally, I was really unsure because I didn't want to get anyone who was not as good as him. I either wanted to get someone who was just as good or better, because I was like, there's no point continuing if we can't get anyone awesome. And personally as well, with us as dudes. So yeah, it was a really kind of weird time, and then the time in between where we'd asked Dan, but he hadn't given us an answer yet. Everything was just up in the air, basically. And we, and luckily he said yes, and now we're doing stuff.
And how did you kind of facilitate those changes? Was that something which Luke was involved in? Like, how did...
No, Luke wasn't around then. We had another manager, but we kind of... It was just always just constant communication about whatever the certain issue might have been at the time, just constant communication and how we can resolve it and what's the best way to do it, and yeah, basically just trying to figure out how we can do it and not damage ourselves too much.
So I mean, that's something which I wanted to touch on. You did kind of change the sound, change the vocalist, major changes for a band. How did you manage the announcement, and how did you roll that out, I suppose, to kind of minimise the fallout?
Yeah. So we with Joey, we kind of just, like, we weren't doing much at the time. Perspectives had been out for a year and a half, 2 years or so. Excuse me. And we just posted it, and we just said, Joey's not in the band anymore, blah, blah, blah. Wasn't that huge of a thing, because we weren't hadn't had much news or anything. There was still obviously backlash, and a lot of people liked the old sound with the keyboards and stuff, but yeah. But with Dan, that was a different thing, because obviously the front man, the kind of connection between the audience and the band, that whole thing was kind of gone, and like that had been built up in like the 5 years previous. So yeah, we kind of rolled that out a little bit differently. We did like a series of short like webisode videos called, what are they called? Moving On. That was Luke's idea, I think.
Yeah, that was the first thing I had to do.
Yeah, that was Luke's first job, replace the singer. Yeah, so we did. I think we did like 4 of those or something, 3 or 4.
Yeah, we did 4, and then we actually did them during the Moving On tour, which is like just one last tour, playing club shows and all ages shows, and then
yeah, that was the last tour.
And the very last one we did is when we announced who the new singer was, and we actually had an episode of a demo. It was actually Blood Knuckles, I think. Maybe, I don't know, just a like 30-second snippet of him screaming so that people would see how good the new vocalist was.
What was the thinking behind stretching it out over 4 videos? Was that just kind of prepare people, or was there any strategy there?
My theory behind it was just that if people wanted to stick with the band, they needed to know that someone good was getting involved, and if we hyped it up enough, then people would think someone good was going to be involved, and then they'd think he was better, because why would you hype up something that's shit? Like, you know what I mean? Like, pardon my French.
Because you want to fool someone.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we also like said that Crafter was going to be singing for them and stuff like that. Yeah, which we knew we could do better than that. So.
And it obviously rolled out as you expected it would do.
Yeah.
So kind of, I suppose another one for you, Ryan. How the changes in the structure of the band, how did that affect the live show? I mean, swapping out live keyboards for samples, etc. Was that a major issue?
It was great.
Less gear?
It was so much tighter. Yeah, less gear. We just swapped a person for a MacBook Pro, and haven't looked back really. A lot cheaper to fly with. Yeah, but that was fine. The whole keyboard thing was fine. Chris, our other guitarist, was happy because he didn't have someone standing right in front of him the whole set on stage. And Dan, obviously coming into the band, seasoned performer, awesome frontman, all the energy in the world, and with that extra space on stage, like Joey not being there and stuff, I think our stage show's only gotten better as time.
So would you say you generally got out of it kind of without too much drama from the fans? It seems like you kind of slid through.
Yeah, I think we did all right. Kind of scraped through.
It's good. So I suppose looking forward to the strategy for the album, at what point did all you guys kind of get involved? I mean, because it seems like you had those YouTube videos. And then from that point forward, it seemed to be a pretty structured campaign all the way through to the album being released in July. Luke, I mean, I suppose you kind of quarterbacked all this, being the manager and the label. How did the strategy begin? Like, are you talking to Edwin and Beck, and when did they come into play?
They sort of came on a little bit later. I guess the first thing was just making sure that there was a good album, and the guys had all the time in the world, and they utilised that time off the road to just write. And so once we knew we had a good album, then I guess we were ready to go. So yeah, demoing everything. I think pretty much the first thing I said to the guys was that if we're going to do another album, I want to go with Machine. So that was just getting the basics down, getting the songs down, getting the producer down. And then from there, it was kind of like as soon as they started recording, we wanted to make sure that we had constant updates and everything to give people, because you know the band spent a lot of time just not anywhere. So first there was the announcement they're on Unified. They'd actually been on Unified for a good 6 months, but we announced it at a certain time. And then from then on, there was just constant video updates of them in the studio. The guys worked really hard on actually making videos with their video guy, and we just kept rolling stuff out, just new announcements, something every week. So it just felt like House vs Hurricane were back, and it sort of worked.
Is that important to keep telling people what's going on? Because I mean, a lot of people will say that you want to go away, so when you come back, you've got a bit of a splash. I mean, Beck, from a publicity point of view, do you think it can hurt you to do that, or what would you think?
I think it was really helpful for us when we came on board that there was so much already happening, and we had so much information and so many tools already to work with that our job was actually pretty easy by the time we came on board. We just hit media all at once with everything that we had, so that there was a really good story around the release already. Unified, I think, are usually pretty good at doing that.
There's obviously a big brand you built around the Crooked Teeth, and it was something which is, I'm guessing, kind of came along very early in the planning process. Do you remember how that started? And is that something you kind of work on as a band, or with management, or with a designer, or where does that start?
Reese is one of the band members, I think, that out of all the bands I've ever worked with, that has a really, really good idea of what he wants, and so it made it very easy. So I'll pass that on to you.
Thanks. We came up with the name for the album while we were over there recording. We were in Hooters, and we were eating chicken wings and drinking beer, as you do in Hooters. And Death Cab for Cutie was on the stereo in Hooters, and we were like talking about our favourite Death Cab songs. And we'd been talking about the album title earlier that day and stuff, and just trying to figure out what we wanted it to be called that was going to represent the vibe that we wanted to set up for this album. And we were talking about it, and we were like, someone said, oh yeah, I love that song Crooked Teeth, and I was like, we're calling the album Crooked Teeth. And then we all just looked at each other and just went, yep, doing it. That was after like so many hours of like being tediously going over like names and titles and stuff, and it just happened like that. And then the actual branding, like the picture of the teeth and stuff we came up with in the studio. We were just sitting around one day and going over like what we, you know, I'd kind of done some research into branding and stuff like that, and because I don't really know that much about it, but I kind of checked it out, and you know, like a strong logo that's just can be attached to everything, and when people see it, they think of a certain thing or whatever. And I was like, we need something like that, something cool, a bit kind of street, not like a cool band logo, just something you can just draw on your pencil case or whatever. So that was kind of the idea with that, and we just came up with it, and we sent it to a guy, and he sent, like, I did like a rough thing with a texter, and then he sent it back, and it was like, sweet, and that's the exact one that's on everything now.
How much easier did that make your job, having that strong brand to kind of build a rollout around?
Infinitely. It's a huge thing, and I'd actually been bugging the guys for about 8 months or something before they started recording, just saying we have to have a name for this album. We need to know really early what we're doing, and then, you know, one day you wake up after hassling them for 8 months, and they've just sent you an icon and an album name, and then all of a sudden it's just like full steam ahead. It's got a tour.
So where do you go from there? What's the next step? You've got that logo, you've got a name.
Spread it.
Yeah. And how did you do it?
Just work on the branding of it. I mean, that teeth icon It's been on like every merch design. It's been on hats and beanies and tour posters. It's been on people's faces, just with the little thing in film clips, everything. So as soon as we had that, it's kind of like I actually had a lot of stuff set up, and it was just sort of waiting on those two things, a name and an icon. And obviously those things take time. You have to wait for the inspiration to hit you. As soon as it hit, I think it was like announce a tour like 2 days later, and then announce everything else. So it was good.
So that was, when did you have that? Because the album came out in July. So how far back did you have the logo and then I suppose start the marketing rollout?
We started recording like March 28th. So it would have been like sort of that
Would have been
first week.
mid-April.
Just June. It was like June, yeah, in April sometime. And that's when we announced the tour, like in April as well. So yeah, April, let's just say that.
Once the campaign started, it did seem to kind of ignite really quick. Can you put on your finger on what started that momentum? Was it something from a publicity side, or was it? I
think it was when I asked the guys to do it. It was basically the release of Blood Knuckles, and then I'd been like, well, we're not going to be able to get a music video done because you're obviously recording and everything. Can you do a lyric video? And the guys came up with the idea to write things on place cards and go around the city. And I think that really reinvented house. And so as soon as we put that up on the YouTube and it had 30,000 views in 24 hours, it was like, that was like, they're back. Because everybody's just waiting to hear from music. Like, no keyboards, new vocalists, new everything, kind of a new image, you know, with the icon and everything. Promo photos are a bit different than they used to be. And everybody just wanted to see how that ties in with music, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're here to create, not icons. And so when people heard the song was good, they saw the video was good, it was just like straight away, it seemed like House was all of a sudden a big band again. Like, it was just like that. How often did you check the YouTube page that day? Yeah, probably a bit. Did that just go loud?
That video went nuts. It was crazy. I remember sending it over to Triple J, I think the day that it got released, and it had 300 views when I sent it to them. And then 4 days later, I was officially servicing the single to Triple J, and the video had like 35,000 views or something, and it was an easy sell to them after that.
But it's never really an easy sell for this kind of music to Triple J, is it?
No.
How do you approach selling post-hardcore or hardcore or anything with a loud guitar to Triple J for daytime airplay?
It's tough. I mean, we've got to have Stu Harvey's support from Surefast Loud to start with, usually. We usually sort of try and identify the people within Triple J who get that it's a thing, and try and get them on board. That's across the board with media in general, really. It's about finding those people that understand hardcore or understand heavy music and where it sits in the scheme of things, because I think a lot of people are scared of it and they just don't get it, and it's such a huge thing that's really, you know, it's really powerful at the moment, so they've got to start paying attention. So we try and find the people that get it and get them to kind of push it up the ranks. I think when House got added to Triple J, Kingsmill was away, so it was Nick Finlay, the assistant music director, was filling in for him, and he took a punt. And I commend him for taking that punt, because I think it must have been quite nerve-wracking for him to add something that was a bit different. But he could see the momentum. He could see that we had so many views on that video. And I think you had premiered the song and played it twice. Was that right?
From memory,
on the same night, yeah.
It got such a good reaction.
And Dom sort of played it the following 2 days as well. So we'd had 4 spins leading up to it, which is good. Yeah. And Triple J was presenting the tour, which is something we locked in, I think, in 2011, like really That's far right. out. Yeah. But I think also just a timing thing. Sorry to butt in, but no. I think, you know, obviously the media is trying to work out what hardcore is, because it's been quite successful recently. They're looking at Soundwave Festival killing it. They're looking at Parkway Drive selling gold records. But most of the music's radio proof, so as much as they try and support it, like try and play North Lane or Parkway Drive on the air, and it can be pretty uncomfortable. But House just came along with the right song at the right time that was enough on the, you know, other end of the spectrum that they could play it. And they're pretty much dying to play something for 2 years since they played Sleepwalker a couple of times. Yeah. So yeah, it's just timing really.
So is that all part of your sell to Triple J, telling them why they need why they need to support this music.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, if you can convince them that they're going to be left behind and look stupid for not supporting such a big thing, then that's the battle, really. You've got to just convince them that they're just going to look silly if they don't do it.
So that was the time when that song went to radio. That was about the time you started the publicity rollout.
Yeah. So
what were your other kind of key engagements, key targets kind of rolling out from there? What did you want to do?
We had a lot, well, because there was such a big regional tour, we were targeting a lot of regional media. We saw the Triple J ad as an opportunity to get in sort of the or the traditional media, mainstream media, daily papers and that. So we wanted to target them in like regional towns so that people know what's going on, because it's kind of hard to reach those people. So that was one of the main targets. And also there was a bunch of underage shows, so I think we like made an effort to kind of target all ages media. There are a couple of like Espress and there's a website.
We did Dolly, didn't we?
Huh?
Did we do Dolly?
Yeah, I think there was Dolly in there as well. Yeah.
I think we lied and said that one of the members was like 19
Dolly.
or something to get onto it. I think.
Probably.
Yeah, something like that. You're like, how old is he? And I'm like, 19. And then like he was in the magazine. So yeah.
So I mean, that Triple J support. How much easier does that make your job, Edwin, in the regional areas? Does that make it an easier sell, or?
Look, I think with the heavier kind of bands, Triple J is good, but kids in those suburbs, like they're not necessarily Triple J influenced as much, so they're not going to be as excited about as an indie band to a rock or heavy act. And there's more kids in those towns who are probably bored and playing guitar and stuff at home who want to play. And when there's bands from those towns, then naturally a bigger band of that version coming to town's always welcoming. So it would have helped. I think the Triple J side of it, I think everything, like it's not all about just booking the right gig or releasing the right album or the right song. It all has to come together. Yeah. And I think the timing was really well. Like it was the right song, like Luke said, at the right time, and it was right when like. I guess for festivals, it was right when Big Day Out was picking their acts as well. So it was the perfect rollout, the perfect thing. And yeah, like you got your Parkway Drives and your Amity Afflictions out there, kind of setting that those steps, I guess. But yeah, when it came to the regional plays, it would have helped, but it wasn't a big factor in it all, I guess.
Is selling heavy music to the regionals easier than indie stuff?
It really comes to the act, but I think there's more. As I was saying,
just wondered because you mentioned the Triple J would help an indie act.
I think Triple J like getting behind tours that do hit a few regional towns. Like you usually get the presents and all that a lot easier when you have all that, but. Yeah, when it comes to a band like House's Hurricane, you almost have 2 goes at every town as well, because you can do your under 18 show, your over 18 show. So it's in terms of booking tours for a band like a hardcore band, it's actually a little bit more fun and challenging in a sense, because most of the bands I work with are over 18, but then you deal with the under 18. The first aid, the production, the this, the that, and you're like, oh shit, bands get really ripped off before they even before they even get one person through the door.
It's tough. So back onto the rollout, how important was the kind of marketing spend on Crooked Teeth? Like, did you put a fair bit of money behind it? Like, was it a considerable risk you were taking with this, or?
Yes and no. I mean, we never spend that much money on marketing. If you look at the scheme of what labels spend on marketing. Recording, yes. Like, I mean, to record with the best heavy producer in the world does cost money, but it's nothing that we didn't think we could make back. So we didn't spend a fortune on marketing, and we just don't, because we don't need to, because we just know what we're doing.
Because your publicist is so good.
Yeah. We paid you yet? Cool. The marketing spend, it was just, I mean, you just do a simple bit of maths and work out what you can spend and make that stretch.
So, I mean, where did you do your marketing? If you're not spending money on print advertising, I mean, how do you got to let people know about this coming out? Do you just completely rely on Facebook?
No, not at all. I mean, I have the back cover of Blunt and Hysteria every month anyway. So, we've got that ad that we just use for whatever we need to. And actually our company owns a marketing company that does distribution of flyers and posters and that kind of thing. So we were really extensive in doing all that side of print stuff, AO posters, everything like that. But again, it's just a matter of just targeting it exactly where you need to put it. And then, we didn't spend a lot on videos or anything like that. I think the first 2 videos cost like $500 altogether. It's just good ideas and just executing things properly and just getting bargains wherever you can, which is when you're working with punk rock, that's, as you know, it's kind of what you have to do. Because you're not going to get radio play apart from Triple J or anything like that. There's not really that much to spend money on, really.
With the marketing and that, like with money and that, we really wanted, do you remember when we were really wanting to do the paste ups? We wanted to do paste ups all around the city with just the teeth on it and like the release date or something like that, because we were like, this is going to fully suit the vibe so well, like it's just going to be perfect for it. And like we just didn't have enough money to do it. Like something, even as it sounds like something really easy you can do, but it's so expensive to do, and we just weren't able to do it.
Well, it's basically wanting to get custom photos of just celebrities and stuff like that, right? And put the teeth over the top of them, print big posters.
Lil Wayne with crooked teeth on his face.
Yeah, and also it was just freezing cold in June, and I don't think anybody wanted to go out in Melbourne and stick stuff up on a wall.
Being a little bit like newer to the, I guess, House vs Hurricane puzzle, what I noticed and really impressed me about the hardcore scene and House is the support from other bands. Like there's a community, like which you don't necessarily find in other genres, but like as soon as Crooked Teeth video was out, you had Dream on Dreamer, North Lane, In Heart Swag, all those bands sharing it, and I think a lot of kids like having that endorsement from like the musical peers, and not having like Triple J or a magazine telling them that they have to like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so one thing which you did have for the rollout of Crooked Teeth was, and it's something which has been, very, very popular in this kind of world over the last few years, is the bundles, the pre-order bundles. You have CD and shirt, CD and hoodie, CD and socks. How important were these to kind of the release and the rollout, and how important is it to kind of get those sales in the bank before release?
Yeah, I mean, that's just what we do. We did, I guess, in a process way, the way we do it is we do the first, we did, I think, 200 bundles for JB Hi-Fi, and we give them the first one. Those sold out in about 24 hours, and once we'd done that, we kind of, that's the way that JB knows they're strong. So we're still going to look after retailers. Then we gave stuff to Fist to Face and Kill the Music, which is the socks and everything like that. Sold a few through there, and then we released on our unified store, and our store's quite strong. We actually just passed our 20,000th order for the year last week. So, there's so much traffic on there, and we just wanted to make sure that every item that you could possibly want of House vs Hurricane was bundled up with a CD, I guess. And the reason is part of it's security, part of it's because there's no money coming from a retailer, so you're making more money, and part of it is also just because, again, it's about perception. With House, we had 4 or 5 bundles and the vinyl as well. And part of it's just like, giving people the option and giving people the confidence in that this record's going to be that good. Why would, this band that's gone away, why would this label be putting this much into it if it's not amazing? And we knew the record was good, so we did more bundles, and it definitely paid off. I think it was, out of our first week sales, it would have been a good 40%, 50%, maybe like 40, let's say 40.
You mentioned perception. That's something that seems to be something which is always really important in taking these bands to the next level. You're trying to tell people they need to get on board. Like Beck said, Triple J need to be on board, otherwise they'll look silly. How do you go about creating that perception of, that this band is big?
We don't do it with every band. Like some bands you try and underplay the fact that they're pulling a lot of people, and you try and do all that kind of stuff. But with House vs Hurricane, I guess, they had the EP and it made them really popular. Everybody thought they were going to be the biggest thing ever, and then Perspectives didn't do quite as well as we wanted to. And then they lost their singer and everything. And meanwhile, I'm still watching this band that are better live than almost any band in the scene. Great dudes, incredible songwriters. And I'm thinking to myself, well, all these people, like everyone, even just mates in the music industry or whatever, is just like, do you reckon they should really bother doing another record? And it's like, well, no, yes, we should, and this is why, and just backing it 100%. So the perception's there is just that the band isn't just now all of a sudden a joke band. They want to do it. And so that's what I mean in terms of perception. You know, just we're here, we're back, and we don't care what you think because we are just going to do a really good record.
You're kind of putting your nuts on the line, though, aren't you? Because you're kind of like...
Oh, definitely.
It must be a relief when you get that, you know, like that YouTube video figure you mentioned before, 30,000 in 24 hours. That must be that... You know.
No, that just means you've got a lot more work to do after that still. Yeah.
Is it?
It's just the start of it, but it means it's a tick of the box, you know, and then the Triple J adds a tick of the box, and even right now as we're sitting here, we still got plenty more boxes to tick. Like, you know, there's a lot more to go on this record, so you never quite. It's more just like
yeah, it's a little one. So Crooked. So when Crooked Teeth debuted and it did so well on the charts.
Sorry, can I correct you as well? It debuted at number 20 on the charts, not number 9.
9 on the Australian.
What happened was, I think it's because all the voice artists got released that week.
Voice killed us.
And there was like 11 of them or something in there. And so we actually just said, we don't give a shit about the voice. They're not real artists. So we got number 9.
So you did your own survey that week.
So we just announced that it was number 9, but with a little bit of a asterisk next to it. And there's a bit of a joke and everyone's kind of run with it. It was actually number 20, sorry.
You shouldn't have
That
corrected
was
me.
your idea, though, Luke.
It was. Well, it made all the music gossip sites and everything like that as well. So, you know, it gave us a bit of attention.
Always thinking, Luke. I love it.
Too much.
So with a top 20 album then, how does that change Working House versus Hurricane for each of you guys? Edwin, I mean, how does that change you booking shows?
Well, for starters, it's like something you could drop into a conversation straight away. It's like hardcore band top 20, like debut top 20. I think what's also impressive on top of that is that it stuck around for a while. It didn't just come in and like literally disappear the next week, which was always good as well. But yeah, it's a good conversation starter. Like,
yeah, just open doors. Yeah. What about you, Beck? I mean, was there any extra media and publicity that you could generate off the back of that, like doors that were closed before the album came out?
Not so much. We'd already gotten a lot of the publicity locked in before the chart, so if anything, it was more just proving to media that we were right by pushing it so hard, you know. It would have helped, definitely. Like, anything you can add to your ammo when you're going out to media is good, and the ARIA chart does help, but by that stage, I think with this campaign in particular, most of it had already been locked in.
I feel like it helps at retail almost more than anything, and overseas it helps a lot as well. If you can sort of go to other labels and agents and stuff overseas, then that's with
it's
all,
that selling
all your
point,
stats just lined up, ARIA nominations, all that junk. You know, you send it over to them and you get good feedback.
So what about international? That's obviously part of the plan. Where does that sit now?
We're not rushing. We do have Europe next year. I haven't told Riz yet because he got here late. But you know, we've actually released it internationally, digitally, and we've released it physically in Japan and Europe, and it's ticking along. Did you not know that? Whatever. Isn't check his email.
If you got here on time.
I'm really good on the email.
Yeah, I mean, international, we're just taking our time with it. Like, there's no reason to go over there and spend a lot of money until we got it all set up, and I think next year's going to be quite successful for House overseas.
We're listed as the publicity contact on the Facebook page, and we get international inquiries from little blogs in Spain and, you know, in Hungary.
South Africa, a couple of them.
Yeah. So is Unified kind of getting a bit of a name internationally with like little bloggers that are into the
I think so. I
scene?
think partly it's because some of our bands have managed to be quite successful internationally.
Yeah.
Mostly Dream on Dreamer and Amity. And then also just, you know, the internet, the world's a lot smaller than
I think it comes back to what
be.
Edwin was saying before too. It's that reinforcement and that endorsement from other bands, which you know opens up so many doors internationally. So kind of looking back on Crooked Teeth up to where it's at now, what can you look at anything that you would have done differently? I mean, like, do you go back and kind of almost critique and, you know, review and just point out things that I suppose next time around you would do?
No, I didn't really do it, but musically I wouldn't change a thing. It's a really, really, really good record. Maybe it would have given us a little bit more time to space things out around the release, but all in all, you know, it's all been pretty positive, I think. What about you, Riz?
I think the time was good. We kind of hadn't written heaps before we locked in to go. And once we locked it in, we were like, all right, we've got, you know, what was it, like 2 or 3 months to write this record, finish it, get it awesome. And when you have that like time constraint on you, when you know you're going, you're like, flights are booked, like it's on. We were like, I think we finished like 4 songs in the last week before we left. Like, and one of those was one song we finished over there, which ended up being the second single, Get Wrecked. And so it's like, you kind of, when you get pushed, it pushes the creativity out of you a bit. I don't know, something like that.
So I should hassle you even more?
No.
So less time, as you contradicted what you said, okay, so what about the next, do you have a 5-year plan for House versus Hurricane?
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't want to tell everyone in case it doesn't actually happen.
You don't want to?
No.
So, well, okay, then how far ahead do you kind of plan? Like, how far ahead do you plan on this cycle?
I think we know when we want to release the next record, and we know the gaps that we've got to fill in between there. We know also, I mean, this year has been a little bit, you know, the album came out in June, the guys toured all the way through to the start of September, and then since then, we haven't had anything, and part of that's because Dan was getting married, and you know, we have a bunch of other stuff on, but now we've got Alexis on Fire and then Big Day Out, and then the plan is roughly to be really, really busy all next year and fill in that gap and go away and record. But this album's almost like a debut, I feel, because it's a new band. And so everything about this album is setting us up for, hopefully these guys been rich kids when the next one comes out. No, but you know, like, you know, we're all building towards a certain success that we're hoping will happen on what we think is the second album.
Yeah. How much did I mean, you said you've got a 5-year plan, so before you started Crooked Teeth, you had a vision of where you wanted to be at this point.
Yeah, for sure, and actually, I do this with all my bands, but I got House to write out the goals for 12 months' time, 24 months' time, and 5 years' time, and so they've written all those out, and so far we're ticking every box and getting there. I haven't looked at it for a little while, but last I looked at it, we smashed it all in about 2 weeks. So.
We actually did that when we first started. We did like a 10-year plan, and it's so detailed, and it's on the back of my toilet door in my parents' house.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have Kicking Out Joey in there?
It had 2015 in there, man. And when was this? Like,
you guys write it in there together?
Yeah, we wrote it all together as a group at band practice. We sat down.
How much has that differed from real life?
Surprisingly, not that much.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I think within the first year it was like, get one international support in the city, get the songs ready for the EP, blah, 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 like real little stuff, and then just built up. And I think like next year is like release 3rd album and tour Europe, Japan, and America or something like that. Weird. It's kind of the same. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's very weird.
I think everybody involved might be really organised. I know that the guys over at Unified are super organised, and everything kind of can get chaotic, but everyone's got a really clear idea of what's happening at all times. Everyone's really good at communicating, and I think that probably had a big part in the success of this album. So
everyone knows their role and everyone's got a list of to-dos.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all for attending today. Thanks to these guys on the panel. If you just want to give them a round of applause, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.